Welcome to Wright Talk with Mike Lee. Today is the first installment of a series of shows I plan to do on a controversial topic, a tender topic for some, perhaps. But it's a conversation I believe that needs to be had, and I believe that it wants to be had. It's going to be about prejudice, bias, race, racism, and all kinds of things. We want to talk about problems and solutions. Today I want to explore the realities of it with two good acquaintances that I have. One to my right is Richard Franklin. The one to my left is my trusty sidekick, Kennard Wright. First of all, I want to say a few things about Richard Franklin. Richard is one of the best people that I've met in Austin, and I've tried to get together with Richard every Wednesday for my learning. Richard, I don't know if we're friends or not. We butt heads sometimes. Richard butts heads with everybody, I believe. But Richard paid me, in my view, the ultimate compliment. I went to one of the Wednesday meetings, and I walk in, and he says, "That's Mike over there. He's a Republican, but I trust him." And you all who know me, I have a saying. I say, "What's good for the black community is good for the community." And you probably hear that every time my show comes on. I'm going to say it until I'm proven wrong, because I do care. And Richard, to me, I've met most of the good people I've met in Austin. I met because of him. But at the same time, he told me one time I ran into him. He said he was glad I was here because they have somebody else to hate. Now I'm gonna keep it real with you. I'm not coloring or anything like that. Now when it comes to prejudice and bias and racism, I think a mistake that a lot of people make is they use the terms interchangeably as though they mean the same thing. I don't think that they do. I think that we have a problem with prejudice, bias, and racism in Austin, just like we do in the rest of the country. And I think the rest of the country really wants to begin to wrestle with the question. I think they thought they did. They dealt with the question by electing Barack Obama, but we know that they didn't. Now, I was motivated to do this show because earlier this spring, I spoke to the executive committee of the Travis County Republican Party, and James Dickey, the chairman, asked me to make a few words to the committee. And I'll tell you just what I told them. I told them that I believe that if we're the party of Lincoln and consistent with that tradition, we should be the ones to bring this stuff to a close. But it's far from over. You know that, and I know that. Now, Richard, tell us about your experience or knowledge with prejudice and racism you experienced in Austin. Don't take all. Don't take the whole show.
I don't have enough time. In fact, you need a couple more months of shows for that. Being a 60-year-old African American in America, I have experienced racism at the elementary school level, at the high school level in education, in the workplace, and I believe it comes out of a problem we have in America is the prejudice of not allowing people to be who they're supposed to be, which brings more to the table. And when I was 6 years old, I drank from a white-only water fountain. A white-only water fountain.
Where were you at that time?
I was in Columbus, Ohio. See, here's the problem I'm having is a lot of people fail to understand that you have as much prejudice up north as you do down south. It's just couched differently. It's kind of like couched differently, like the liberal conversations you have here in Austin, as if Austin is not racist, as if the policies they have in place here are not racist, and they are. But as long as you say you're liberal and progressive and democratic and so on and so on, then you're not allowed to say that when the reality is the outcomes matter more than the words themselves. So in Columbus, Ohio, as a 6-year-old, I had left Detroit, Michigan, which, by the way, was also a racist town. A lot of people thought it was Chocolate City, but the reality is Detroit, Michigan had almost 2 million people at the time, and the core of the city was about 600,000 African Americans. So we lived amongst ourselves and had most of our own society, our own economy in the inner city, which is 600,000 people, almost the size of Austin now. So you really didn't see the outside area and the fact that the suburbs of Detroit were primarily white. But when I moved from Detroit to Columbus, I went to a school called East Columbus. And the first time I went to get a drink of water, it was from a porcelain water fountain, which said white only. I had no idea what that meant as a kid. I got a drink of water, and I proceeded to pull into the principal's office and got swats. Now, most people don't understand what that means, but to a 6-year-old, to get punished for getting a drink of water and all I wanted was water, that's devastating. And it was devastating. And I've never forgotten that moment, how I felt to say all I wanted was water, all I wanted was a drink, and that was illegal. And that's a problem. So you carry those things with you when you feel like I was in the right, I didn't do anything, and yet I'm not getting the same rights as everyone else around me. And my best friend was a kid named Jimmy Pike. It's a white kid. Jimmy and I were, ace boon till we got to junior high school. But we got to junior high school, and suddenly you find these cliques, and people are taught prejudice, people are taught biases, people are taught these things. Because we were good friends until we got to junior high school, and suddenly he was told by his new friends, his different clique of friends, that I was a black man and not to be trusted. He wound up being a skinhead. I don't think I spoke to Jimmy Pike after I got out of 7th grade. I don't think I ever spoke to the man again. He was one of my best friends growing up. So we are taught to do the things we're doing. I don't think children are born racist or prejudiced or bigoted. That stuff is put into them. And so I have a problem with all that, and I have a problem with the fact that we've gotten to where we are today and no one's addressed it from the root cause.
Can I exactly add to what Richard had to say?
Richard said quite a lot, so I'm not sure I can add very much. But
You couldn't do it briefly, I know that.
yeah, I know. Hopefully briefly. But I will say, I've experienced things in work because I was black, and I've even seen, sometimes unfortunately in our own community, how it's not the institutional racism, it's not involving enslavement, but how we can sometimes even be funny amongst ourselves if you have a friend that's white, if you have a girlfriend that's not black or whatever. But my point is that, to underscore what Richard's saying, I didn't know what race was. My mother was light, my dad was dark brown, so it was just colors was irrelevant. Once as I grew up and I became around other people, oh, hey, yellow boy, I didn't know, hey, yellow bone. The whole idea of race and class and prejudice, when I would walk to a friend's house when I was like 10 or 12 in Baltimore, and I'd go for the black neighborhood to white neighborhood, the police would treat you a little bit different if you're a black kid walking in a white neighborhood. And my friends had a house in that neighborhood. But just the idea that you're treated, and even the idea of growing up into adult, understanding kind of what Richard and I were talking about earlier about how people broke the barriers for us, how we were treated differently just because you were a black man. That's why I wanted to even come here today, because I know I don't have to agree with either one of y'all, but I know you understand what's going on and what we've struggled with and what we're dealing with. And there's still things today, but people aren't always aware of it or even don't know how to properly deal with it.
Now, to me, what Richard said is terribly significant, because my childhood experience was a little different than his. So maybe that may in part true to how we interact and react with people. But I grew up in the only all-black city in the country. It's called Lincoln Heights. You're going to hear about Lincoln Heights every time I'm on TV. It's an all-black town outside Cincinnati, Ohio, that when I was growing up was surrounded by primarily all-white towns. And if I stayed in Lincoln Heights, I did not see a Caucasian person unless I left my neighborhood or on TV. But when I was little, like 5, I joined my buddy who lived across the street, Timmy Halls, he later played pro baseball. We decided we wanted to play baseball, and so I didn't have a glove. My mother wouldn't buy me a glove, but couldn't afford it probably. But I just went down to the baseball field just on faith. I wanted to play baseball. Timmy, I went to the baseball field, and this guy Stan these two white men came, and the one had an army bag, and he started dumping the balls in the bat, and a glove fell out. And I didn't have a glove, so I just went and picked up the glove because I wanted to play baseball. And he told me, he said, little fella, if you're going to use that glove, you got to put this on. He told me how to put the chin guards on. You got to put this on, chest protector, and put the mask on. I was a catcher because it was the only glove that the team supplied. And I think back to that often because I believe I kind of like have no fear. That thing about fearing white people, I'm missing that. And as I had that experience as a child, and then when it came time to go to college, my dad had been murdered when I was 16. And I applied to Cornell, Hamilton College, which is where I really wanted to go, and Denison University. And all of these were predominantly white colleges. When I got to Denison, I hated it. I hated it when I visited. There were 1,900 students, and I think it was 40 of us was black, and half of them talked like this. You know what I mean? I didn't talk like that. I just talked like me. But, and then when I was a situation I was in for 4 years, about 35 miles east of Columbus. And then I went to law school in Dallas, and people thought I was crazy for coming to Texas anyway. And there were 750 law students there, and there were 5 black men. And in that environment, I'm just me, just a guy. Lorenzo Brown and I started the Black American Law Student Association. Now, I wasn't worried about where I was. It was just something that needed to be done, and he and I did it. And so, you know, a lot of how we deal with things comes down to what our own experience is. Because I don't have the anger that I pick up other guys may have because of their experience. I don't have the anger. I don't have the fear either. I fear God. I don't have room for anything else. But to me, racism, it baffles me sometimes to hear, I shouldn't call names, but it's not too smart to say that racism didn't exist until Obama took office. That's insane.
Well,
That's insane. And my white brothers, so far as God made them, when I hear things like that, I say, well, that's just an ignorant person. If they read some of the material I read about Black Africa, and what happened in that region, that experience, and about how this race thing has been going on for thousands of years. It's nothing new. It didn't just happen. It's been going on. One of the things about being a lawyer is you study a lot of things that are not nice. And it's some harsh realities that you have to face. I remember the first time I read a book said something about a law that actually referred to prohibiting black people from doing something. And in Texas it was called, when I went to law, it said Black's Law Dictionary. What the world is that, you know? White people got one too? That's what went through my mind. But it was really kind of shaking to see that in writing in a book, and it's an actual law the legislature passed. And I think one of the things that I got when I was at Denison, they had some liberal right professors. All the guys used to say, man, take so and so, man, he cool. Those were the ones I had the most trouble with.
Really?
Yeah.
But they were liberal.
Yeah.
really? The political titles are they're like condiments. They don't necessarily mean that that's the true nature of anything. It's just what you call it. It's just something you add to it. Race is basically a human construct that's used to divide and subjugate and put people down. So DNA is the same, God sees you the same. But when they made these laws, when they started saying the black and the white, you go back to enslavement. Some of the best slavery revolts were when the Irish or the Scots got along with the black people. Well, you know what? You can't have black people being empowered. You can't have people understanding they're the same, because that means that at the end of the day, you can't control them. And so even today, if you look at a lot of the things that's happening, it's not always about empowering anybody or black people. It's about somebody maintaining power. It's about somebody maintaining influence. And at the end of the day, if you're not careful, you being black or whatever color will get stiffed.
Well, the racial issue is even more insidious than that, because it was created, and they've had difficulty. The Negro issue has always been an issue with America since the beginning of this country. When you have problems even defining what a black person is, the one drop rule in some states was an issue. The fact that from the beginning you had to define whether this person was a human being or not. So at some point in time we had to realize that was designed to create confusion and division in America. And I always tell people, the Constitution wasn't written for me. Constitution, no. I'm not part of that. I wasn't part of the writing of that. I wasn't in the room when it was put down. I laugh about women who are still fighting for the ERA right now. I said, you weren't in there, I wasn't in there, nobody was actually in there but rich white men, and they didn't include anybody that didn't look like or wasn't in their social construct.
There was one black guy, he's on the back of a $2 bill.
He's in the room? He had drinks in his hand?
He signed. He's on the back of a $2 bill.
I'm saying, is he on the is he signed? Mm-hmm. He's a signer. What is his name?
I don't know his name.
We need to find his name, because that's the thing I'm always looking for. I'm looking for the black man that was in the room and said, I go with y'all. I go with the fact that you put me down, I'm a black man, and you put me down as 3/5 of a human being, and I'm okay with it. I want to know what black man said it was okay to call another black man 3/5 of a human being.
He would have only had one vote.
I understand, but if you went along with it and you signed the paper, that would be like a contract. You're an attorney. It's a contract that you signed on to. Did you sign on to this, mister? Yes. Then you signed on to people who look like you as 3/5 of a human being. You approved it. You put your name on it. And you could have abstained. I'm not signing that, because those are my brothers and sisters out there. Those are other human beings. My problem with it is that even the words we use are designed to create havoc and chaos. The words founding fathers as opposed to what really, because founding fathers assumes that that's my dad. My dad wasn't nobody on that piece of paper. Nobody on that piece of paper was my father. So when you created this process, and then we had to carry it forward, we've had issues ever since, because you can't build a house on sand. You can't, and then this thing is going to be sustainable and not be in total chaos all the time. It's always going to be shaky. And what this country has had a problem with is the fact that the foundation itself was built on a shaky foundation.
If that's the case, then what's your premise? What's your solution?
So for me, I think right now what we have is
What's the solution?
we have a marketing issue more than anything else.
Okay.
It began with that process, but right now we need to remarket everything we're doing so that you understand everybody out here has a value. It's not based on a thing that you own. It's based on who you are, and we're human beings.
He's about human dignity.
We all have value. We should all. It's almost a binary process. I am either 1 or 0. And you can't have any in between. Every human being that's on this planet has value. And once we get to the point where we market that, then we solve our problems. But right now, we devalue human beings. I talk to kids all the time, and I ask them, at what point in time did you become a bad child? When did you become an underachiever? When did you become that gap? At what point in time and they go look at me funny? I said, that's what you tell yourself. That's what the world tells you. So if that's what if the world tells you and then you turn around and buy it, you have to ask yourself, at what point in time did that start? Because you didn't start thinking like that until you got in second or third grade. Then you have to ask yourself how you were marketed to think that you're less than, as opposed to equal to and better than in some areas. I may not be great in math, but I can definitely do monstrous things in English. I'm good in something. I may be just good in bringing out the humanity in someone else. That's the issue I have right now. I have kids in wheelchairs that I have seen them have the ability to cause another child to find their humanity. That's that child's value, because they bring out something in someone else. That's what they bring to the table. We have to start recognizing that and selling that to one another. that we all have value, and if you allow me to be who I'm supposed to be, I make you better. I lift you up. You cannot run free if you keep your foot on my neck. That's the issue at the end of the day.
You know what's always interested me is how kids can play.
Right.
They just want to play.
Right.
And enjoy life.
Me and Jimmy Pike till he got in 7th grade.
I had another experience in South Florida about 15 years ago. I was buying a Christmas tree. And in buying that Christmas tree, there's a lady, you know, she's picking out trees or something. She was from South America or something like that. And she came over to me, she said, you know what? I didn't know people like you were black people until I got here. She said, there were people like you in my neighborhood, but they were just people in the neighborhood. And I think that's how children are, and that's how it is when you just accept each other as human beings.
Right.
It's just somebody else in the room.
So we have to ask ourselves, at what point in time do we start selling the bigotry, the prejudice, the hatred, the division of who we are? Because a child is laying beside another child in a crib has no idea what that child is. All they know is it's another human being. They feel that spirit of that human being. So what have we done in our society? Who is selling us these problems, and to whose benefit is it? We have to ask that question.
Well, it goes to what I said earlier. The benefit isn't to the collective or to the public. The benefit is to a given special interest, a given person or group of people. When people are divided, when they don't understand that there's commonality, you don't appreciate human dignity, like you said, then you're more easily manipulated. When you're manipulated and divided, then your influence, it don't mean nothing. I mean, then they don't really have to control you. People don't even necessarily have to lie. Right. You self-destruct yourself. Just in
That's
terms,
if you buy it. If you buy what
no,
you're saying.
but that's what I'm saying. Most people,
Right.
Excuse me for being mean, are unable or unwilling to say, okay, that's a bunch of BS they just sold me. Okay, yes, I know there's such and such, but here's the fact that, like Richard said, I know that there's dignity. There are bad cops, and we need to deal with this. But there are also good people, or somebody's prejudiced against black people. Yeah, I know some black people on welfare, but you know what? They're not all on welfare. You can buy it or not. At some point, it's what you learn. But as you reach adulthood, it's like my daughter, when she turns 18, she and his kids, or whatever, she'll have the ability to decide what she thinks. And if she buys it, that's something that we all, it's like we're collectively fooling ourselves.
I'm talking to my mother this morning, know this. So there's a guy out in our neighborhood selling Kirby vacuum cleaners.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's still around?
He's still. Well, and that's another story altogether. But so he's in the neighborhood, and I live way out in Eastern Travis County. I don't even live in the city, and it's primarily minority district area, and he's talking to my mom. She gave him something to eat. They're sitting out front just talking about everything, and this is what Mom's telling me this morning. She says, you know, it's mighty quiet out here. This is a nice neighborhood. And she looked at me and said, well, what did you think? He said, well, I'd heard bad things. So he had, again, the prejudice, not the bigotry or the racism, the prejudice of the area had told him that the area he was going out to sell these vacuum cleaners, he was going to watch himself because he had been told it was a bad area. He gets out there and suddenly goes, wait, it's nice out here. It's quiet. People are friendly. They're giving me sandwiches. Everybody's talking to each other, walking the dog. So suddenly and my mother said, well, if you don't know me, then how do you judge me? Mm-hmm. If you're not part of my world, then how do you judge me based on what somebody else has told you who's never even been here? And that's the kind of thing that continues on, and that's a matter of marketing. Because if you market, we're in the school districts that are marketed as bad schools, we're marketed as bad areas, when the reality is those kids are just like the kids everywhere else, and given the proper resources and assets and people who care, will perform as high as anybody else. That is fact. You cannot tell me because I'm in an area where I don't have a lot of money that I still can't succeed and most times exceed my expectations. But when you lower the expectations, then there's a problem.
Well, but that goes back to say the history of black people prior to integration. Y'all, unfortunately, are a bit older than myself. I'm only 45. Before that time, we didn't always have a lot of money, like where I was from in Baltimore, right? But you understood you had a community, You had schools that they may have not had financial resources, but they had what he said earlier, they had faith in individual resources. And those kids would tend to do well. That doesn't exist in our community. And given how society markets things, even rap music. I went to UT Black Alumni Function, and I left when it got to the recent music because it had no human value. And that's just one aspect. The political season, the ads that we get, the things that we buy, most of them have no value. They don't build nothing. They don't empower nobody. But my whole point is that we used to be able to do much with less. Now we really, even if you, and Rich and I've talked about this several times, we even have per capita income-wise, we're a black community, it's a big economy, but we have more resources, and we value each other less. We need to put less time into people. It almost is crazy that, you know, how do you go in a generation and go from, you know, all these families together, or kids achieving, to a generation later, you're shucking and jiving just to get anything to make sure that, you know, that the kids just survive. That's the responsibility. Yes, society gives us a bunch of mess, but that's an individual responsibility. What I teach my daughter, and the reason why I appreciate people like, you know, Richard, is that, and even myself, I hope, is that you're being real. You're going to tell people what they need to know. You're going to tell the kids what they need to know. If I help some kid, like when I worked at a charter school, if I see that kid on the street, and I already worked in a charter school about 15, 20 years, that's still my student. And if I could help my student, I help him. Because what's he talking about? Human dignity. I appreciate the human dignity. That's what we should do. I went to a meeting last week, and everybody laughed, and I said, well, I'm just here, and I just want to help people. They, we're going to get you. No, they missed the whole point. I really do just want to help people. I don't want your money. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times people will help you if they can get something from you. Well, whether you look at it logically, in terms of psychology, biblically, you should see it in the other people. When you see your love, your care, everything that I would respect from both of you, even though I think you're both absolutely smashingly crazy in a brilliant way, it's because the love, the care for the people, for the community. Your party, your ethnicity, your age means jack crap, because you know you can say, I can trust your integrity, I can trust what you're doing and why you're doing it. A lot of times in society, you can't trust that. You can't.
So I would go where the trust starts, though.
Well, exactly.
How do we get to the point where we destroy trust?
That's why I was shocked when you told me that. When I came in the room, and I came when I went to Wednesday deals. You said, "That's Mike right there. He's Republican, but I trust him." I thought, you don't even know
I trust
me
until you prove that you can't be trusted.
Right. That's exactly what you said.
That's what I said.
And what did I tell you about somebody recently? I said, well, based on how that person acts, you can't trust him.
Right.
And I told you about that twice. I'm not saying, no, because at the end of the day, look, I don't care where you work. I need to be, if we're gonna roll, if we're gonna solve something, even if it's just we're gonna solve what pizza we're gonna get, we're gonna solve how to get a lady resources that needs resources. Why are you in it? Because most of the folks that we know that may not watch your show or whatever, they're not in it to win it. They're in it to win it for themselves. And when you have most of the people that's only caring about themselves and what you're going to get, that's called a problem. We lost the trust when people started losing that sight of their human dignity, losing sight of the importance of the collective. What you say at the beginning was good for the black communities is good for everyone else.
That's what I say.
But people don't seem to appreciate that. If I just go and teach something like that to my kid, then I've done my job. Now, maybe I should do greater, but I need to at least instill that love and respect and that willingness to work together in at least one other person, at minimum, because that's where our responsibility to the future is to make sure that his son and my daughter and your kids or grandkids or whatever understand these things, because that's where we've fallen short. To me, is we ain't got to be perfect, but you got to have people that's willing to do something to help somebody. And I don't care if you're talking Austin, Baltimore, most people they're only willing to help the people they know. They're only willing to help the people that would benefit them, and that's why we have a problem. Yes, we need to appreciate human dignity. Yes, we need to address racism and prejudice, but if you cannot work together, then you're in trouble. You're in deep doo-doo.
Indeed.
I think one of the points that you raised, Richard, was that it's important to me. It's self-knowledge. You need to know some things about yourself in order to know what to accept and what to reject. To me.
Right. Well, and again, the fact that I'm now going to have to go look up the black man who's signed on the Constitution is going to be bothering me for a while because
He didn't sign the Constitution, I don't think.
Well, okay. Well,
He's on the back. He's in the room.
Declaration of Independence.
He said in the room.
In the room. Okay. What else?
He's in the
He's
room.
in the room.
He's in the room.
Massa, you want to say no? Anyway, because the reality is, there's so much history that is missing. There's so much history that has been rewritten, whitewashed. Literally, when you find out that what actually happened wasn't what we thought, and then we don't revise our thinking because of it, it's like we can't unring the bell, but the bell rung at the wrong time. And I tell people all the time, remember the Maine. The Maine was sunk from the inside, but we started a war from it. And no one ever went back and said, you know what, we started a war with the Spanish over Cuba for no reason because we sunk the ship and made it happen ourselves to give ourselves a reason to do something. But if we don't go back and say, you know what, learn from history and understand this mistake was made, then the same thing happens in our community. If we realize we're not where we want to be, at what point in time do you go back and say, this is what the problem was, and we start from there and fix it? But we've got to know some basic knowledge and the things that we've been given as basic knowledge that may be erroneous, and we may go down the wrong path and never get to the right place because you're on the wrong track to start out with. I give this example all the time. Every time someone talks to me about the bus boycott as the reason we got back on buses, I'm going, that's not what happened, and we need to stop propagating that myth.
Tell the truth.
The bus boycott was, granted, something that brought light to the country. But the reality is it was a Supreme Court case that was won as to why the bus boycott was found to be illegal. I mean, the discrimination was happening on buses to be illegal. Not the bus boycott, and all of a sudden they broke under financial pressure because they were not going to break under financial pressure. And we need to stop that because the first thing everybody wants to say now is vote with your dollars. I said, that's an interesting process, is just taking yourself out of a mix, but that doesn't solve the problem of not controlling the means of production. It doesn't control the fact that you don't control a bank, you don't control financial institutions, you don't control the things that are necessary for us to build societies as we did before. And if you understood, I always look at Black Wall Street and say, when they were so successful, they had their own banks, their own economy, then the literal prejudice mindset, the racist mindset at that point that they shouldn't have, and that didn't make the whole city of Tulsa better. They then decided to burn it down without thinking that, those people are thriving and they lift us all up. They never talk about the fact that in burning down that area of Tulsa, Greenwood, when they burnt that down, they actually did damage to themselves. If we don't understand that, then we don't understand how we got to where we are today with the divisions we're having right now. That's the issue at the end of the day. We're fighting because we don't understand the damage we do to each other. And if you do damage at the bottom, which is where we were at the time, then you do damage to the people at the top too. And that's got to be understood. I said, how do you do this? I show you how bringing me into the mix. I tell my kids this in my program. To sell yourself to someone, which is what you're doing, by the way, everything is still marketing. Whether you're going in for a bank loan or you're going in for an interview or whatever it might be, I bring value to your company. That's the reason you need me. I bring a different point of view. I bring a DNA that causes me to survive and thrive in difficult situations. I'm able to respond differently than everybody else that you have here. I bring a certain value as to why you need me with you. And it's hard to fight back and say, man, everybody in this room is thinking the same way, but the one person here who can solve a problem is the guy who comes in the door with a different idea. I'm that guy. That's why you need me in the room. That's a sell, but that also elevates the whole company. That elevates everybody.
It benefits all.
Everybody benefits because I'm lifting from the bottom. Sorry about taking that up.
Yeah.
The history piece gets me going, man.
That wasn't a filibuster, but it made sense. I was going to say that, again, to add value to it, or more value, because it's very valuable, what you said, is that understanding that you add value, even just understanding your history, helps change the paradigm. Like when I was younger, my dad would tell us about any aspect of Black history. We had a whole basement full of books.
Right. Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh
like
yeah.
big
Oh yeah.
6 foot.
Everybody had
tall,
encyclopedias.
and on 2 size books, the whole thing, 2 of them. So actually, no, it was 4 of them. So that's hundreds of maybe thousands of books, probably hundreds. But I would go read the books because we ain't doing nothing else. You're gonna read the book. Well, the point is that my dad presented knowledge, and my mother presented knowledge to me, or he would tell me things, and so I would tell my daughter things. So when they're talking about slavery at Lee Elementary here in Austin, which somebody renamed, but I thought it was silly being my black daughter being at Robert E. Lee Elementary, but changing the name really didn't do nothing. But the point of it was, when they talked about slavery, I told her it was enslavement. And I told her why. She didn't really care. She's in 5th or 6th grade. But the point is, you drop the knowledge on your kid so they'll have it later. You give them a sense, and not everything he said, but you give them a sense of who they are. You know what? Mm-hmm. You know, and then you tell them, and when you find out knowledge, like maybe one of y'all know this. I was really excited to find this out the other day. I was really excited. The Harlem Hellfighters in World War I. The U.S. government sent them over and said, "Oh, we don't want the Negroes. We're going to send them to France." Terribly distinguished. You know what? I know history, but I was like, "Dad, I didn't know that one." But the whole point was understanding who you are, understanding what you've done as a race of people, if you or whatever, allows you to have that sense of community, like we were talking earlier, that sense of trust. We don't do that. You may teach your kid how to drive. You may teach them safe sex. You may teach them a lot of things, but you don't teach them who they are. When you don't teach them who they are, then they're susceptible to society. And when they're at risk to society, it's all off. You've lost a generation because your butt was too lazy and to go and teach them something. You didn't have to have no degree to teach somebody who they was. You just did it.
Another issue we have is how we have come to the value things, stuff. And I always go back to what I'm talking to these kids about. How do we get to the point where we only value stuff? And the issue comes down. I don't know if you guys are Trekkies, but I'm a Trekkie.
I'm a reformed Trekkie.
You're reformed, okay.
Yes.
Well, they have one that came out in the 80s where they have a replicator.
Yeah.
A replicator actually shows you the true value of relationships, because a replicator can replicate anything that you want. Anything that you want other than a relationship. It can't create that which can't be created other than without the relationships. Mm-hmm. So if you start looking at the things that matter the most, that make us the most human, those are actually the things that make us the most valuable. The fact that you can't measure determination, and you can't measure, how we interact with each other, and the fact that love you can't quantify love. You can't know those things. But when I give these kids, I say, I'm gonna give you $5 billion. I'm gonna give you $5 billion. This is hypothetical. I'm gonna give you $5 billion. I'm gonna take you to a deserted island and drop you off. And I'm gonna come back in 5 years and get you. Tell me how much value the money has now. What did you do with $5 billion when it was just you and money? And the kids look funny at me and say, well, I said, after 5 years, you go stock raving mad. You will have burnt money. You made clothes out of money. You do all kind of things with money, but the money didn't buy you anything, because the thing that's most valuable is the fact that I came back and got you.
It's interaction.
And right now, you'll hug me and never let go. Because our relationship, the fact that I'm here for you after 5 years, will change the whole conversation, and you'll leave that money behind. You'll leave $5 billion on that island just to get off of to get with some people after 5 years, guaranteed. Because suddenly you realize what's really the most valuable is our interaction with each other. Mm-hmm. And the fact that someone cares about you and you can care about them. And we've gotten away from that because someone said, I need 24s and I need some extended rims. I got to have, something that makes me look like something. And so we're more worried about what we look like rather than what we do. And I'm troubled by in our society right now. We're not worried about what we do. We got to do better. We got to do better by each other. We got to start showing some real love. I'm talking about sometimes some hard love. Sometimes we got to take the young brothers and snatch them like I did last week. And they freaked out when I did it. But I'm taking the words out of their mouth, the words that are detrimental to whom they are as human beings. I'm making sure those words aren't used on each other.
Yeah.
Because at some point in time, you got to realize the reason someone can disrespect you in the streets, the reason they can say the things they say to you in the streets is because you've done it to yourself. And I'm not saying society is fair, and I'm not saying it's equal, because it ain't. Because fair and equal don't exist anywhere. In nature, it doesn't exist. But I do know that you cannot continue to be part of your own demise. I do know that you can pull back from that and put the hole. If you're in a hole, stop digging, is the conversation. But right now, we've got to recognize first we got to stop the easy things. The easy thing is dealing with ourselves. It seems to be the most difficult, but it's not. Changing structures in society is difficult. Changing the fact that I got a kid out here who's walking down the street calling each other out their names, I can stop that right now. And I do.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, but a couple things, is that sometimes people will say love is patient, love is kind. This is a biblical thing and all that. But also love sometimes is like when Jesus went up into the temple and snatched over the tables of the money changers, told them, get out of my father's house. Point is, to draw that in is to say that it used to be, and again, we can all have different beliefs as to who and what God is. Used to be the church was a vehicle towards change. But now the church, and there may be 700 or 800 in Austin.
Don't get Richard started.
No, I know. We're gonna believe probably different on this. But now.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I know, but I gotta get it in before he goes off again.
I'm not going off.
No, it's fine because because listen, when you go off, what did we say? We know why you care, you love. How many of us do not love each other unconditionally? And the reason I'm saying that is like, at least for me, it's like, well, God says the best. If you want to be first, you must be last. You will go serve. Negroes serve themselves. White people serve. Well, I don't care what you know. People serve themselves. But that love is patient. Sometimes it's and sometimes love is different things. But that love is an instrument of change. And a lot of times what's happened with many of the churches, maybe somebody's out there, I guess I'm just an usher, so, don't call the church.
Go usher next week.
You can call
He
the
can't
church,
come
it doesn't
back.
matter. And
Kennard's band.
And we have an interracial denomination. Just heaven forbid we go together church with different races. It's just that and I'm losing my frame of point. But you have that, you give, you serve, you give unconditionally. The church is more, just as an inhibiting factor, the church oftentimes is like a social club instead of a movement of God's word, of God's nature. Again, believe what you want to believe, but if we have 700 churches in the city, 1,000 in the city, and all they're worried about, what are they worried about? Exactly what he said. They're worried about, and I'm not, please don't say I'm going to hell, because I'm Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, that was his name, was Yeshua. The whole point is this. We're typically a vehicle of change in our community. And now often they are a vehicle of I can't think of a polite way to say it, a vehicle of inertia, a vehicle of nothing. It's a social club. The church stays true to what the divine nature, to make disciples, to blah, 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 heal the sick, raise the dead. But you know what? He said we have authority like he does. Most churches will just have authority to just try to get people in there and make them feel good. The point is, the church should also be, if this is something that's part of our community, this should be a vehicle for change, not a vehicle of, not an impediment.
Yeah, Jesus is coming. Look busy.
But see, that's no. But see, check it. Not to sound. I'm not worried about sounding spiritual. But even if that's the case, he said he's coming back for Victoria's church. The church is a bunch of people sitting around jibber jabbering over who's going to have lunch at Luby's.
We have a better church service on Wednesday morning than I ever did on Sundays.
That's because
we have more togetherness.
But that's because they're not doing what they are called to do. They're a bunch of lazy schmucks who aren't doing what the word calls them to do.
Go back to church.
I know. Not trying to. No, I'm not trying to be mean to people. But this is something that we are called to do. We are called to represent things. We are called to represent the kingdom. If you believe in God, and if you don't, that's your business. The whole point, and I'll leave it at this, is that church was a vehicle of things in my community in Baltimore when I moved to Atlanta. that vehicle the vehicle needs a new clutch. It's burnt out. The car ain't going nowhere. And that's an important driver. We don't need Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. Surely don't need Farrakhan. Now he's not a church, it's a Nation of Islam. But the point is, we don't need the names. We need the people. We need the people's hearts. Because when you touch somebody's heart, then you change the world. If you're just touching this up there, you're gonna change some of it. But what's everything he say come down to? When he talk to the kids, when you sit up there looking too black, too strong, don't look like a Public Enemy video, you're changing hearts. You're trying to change a heart because you care.
Well, we live in a country, and since you've gone into the religious thing, I have problems right now. I said, we continue to say we're raised in a Judeo-Christian society. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, and we believe the teachings, then how are we killing people in other countries? How do we justify that? And I say we justify that because we're prejudiced against the area that we're looking at. We're bigoted toward the Middle East, we're bigoted toward Africa, and therefore the people there are not human. As if they're not connected to this whole thing like we're connected.
But you're not necessarily doing that because of your Judeo-Christian beliefs. You're doing that because of American imperialism.
We're supposed to, I would say, if you believe seriously in your heart that that's who we are, then we should be an instrument of peace. Our whole focus should be, how do I force peace? And I continue to say, you can win a battle with a bullet, but you can only win a war with butter. I can only change your hearts and minds by making sure you are well fed, well taken care of, and understand I am here for you, that I am in the body, that we are all connected in this thing. And if I come to you as a man of peace, as a child of God, and we all connect that way, then you will sense me. You will understand me. And I'm not here. I cannot hurt you. I'll die. I will go on to my reward before I do harm to you. If that's what we're supposed to believe, then why don't we walk that walk? And how do we justify it? And I say we justify it by the fact that right now, they're just people of color that are far removed from us. But we are part of this little blue dot out here in the middle of nothing.
Well, I think, at least in the context of the country, you kind of go into the biblical nature of that. Well, I don't know. We don't have enough time for that.
That's told us another prayer.
Well, I'm saying, but that sounds nice, but that's maybe a little bit of a false dichotomy. That's something that sounds like it's related and it may not be exactly, at least fully to me. But I'm just saying on a local, national level, I'm just saying, look, if the church or the synagogue, if you're Jewish, if that's part of your collective, then this should be a part of the collective that's functioning. It should be like your kidney or some part of your body that's working correctly or contributing to the health of the body. I'm not saying that they're doing bad, but I'm just saying that we have so many of them. Well, why aren't you contributing more? Or let's say just the same as you may engage in something to protest police violence. Well, show me how you're trying to bridge the gap to make sure that, yes, you address police violence, but yes, you understand that there's an internal thing that we need to do for ourselves. Right. So what are they doing? What is anybody doing? I may not. The guy said to me, he said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, we don't maybe need to see everything everybody's doing. We're not. But just take it, like what you said, in your heart to try to help somebody. But just take it in your heart to try to do something. I'm going to give you something.
Because when they had the protests here at the Capitol about Black Lives Matter and some other people met, I spoke to some people and I said, let me ask you, are we here to fight? Right. Or are we here to win? Because it's my contention that there are organizations, there are people in this world who are looking for the fight. I fight all the time. Don't get it twisted. I don't live for the fight, but I will fight you. Because I don't like to see people hurt. I don't like to see people oppressed, period. And I will fight you. I will fight anybody. I don't care. But I'll fight you because I was given broad shoulders and that's what I'm here for. But I also understand there's a way to win, and what we're doing right now is not a winning process. No. And I spoke to Black Lives Matter. I said, let me tell you what's going on right now. You guys are protesting right now, and the whole world's getting madder and madder at you, and it doesn't really matter because you're losing anyway, so you don't care. But you don't want to win, you just want to fight. And I want you to win because I don't want you to be here 60 years from now doing what I'm doing to you to the next 3 generations back. Right now, there's 14 cops up there on motorcycles on the corner. And I want you to do this for me. Listen to me, it's going to be difficult. But if you're willing to win, you got to be willing to sacrifice. And I know you hate cops because the cops are killing us in the street and it shouldn't be our problem. But if we can fix it, then we got to fix it. It shouldn't be a fix coming from our direction, but maybe we are the bridge. Maybe we build a bridge from the weak side. I need you to walk up to those cops right now. Listen to me closely. Walk up to the cops right now and take all the anger out of your heart for just a second. Put the smile on your face if you can. If you got to get stone-faced, just do it. But walk up and tell the cops up there that you hate so much, and I know how much you hate them because I understand. But walk up and say these words. Mr. Officer, I care about you. I care about you as a human being on this planet. And I want you to be safe and secure. And this is before the cops got shot in Dallas, by the way. I want you to be safe and secure in your person. Because I don't think you should ever have to worry about going home or not going home, injured or dead, to your family. I don't want your family to have to worry about you when you walk out the door. Because I value you as a human being. I just want to know one thing, sir. Do you feel the same way about me? And say no more words after that. Keep the cameras rolling and wait for his response. Wait for her response. And see if they respond to you in the same way you respond to them. Because right then, you start winning the war. Mm-hmm. Because if I told you about my humanity and I'm testing your humanity, then you got to either do one or two things. You got to reach around me and reach across the aisle, or you slap my hand and you show the world who you are. Because I didn't come at you funky. I came out with you with a hand of friendship and forgiveness. And not necessarily you being the person I'm forgiving, but right now we feel wronged by what's happening in our community. But if I come to you and tell you, I forgive you for what you're doing to me, and I'm hoping that you'll forgive me for even existing, because that's what it feels like, and you can't do that, you will have shown the world who you truly are. And then the tide starts to change in your behalf, in your favor, because the world will see your humanity and understand your humanity. This will be the moment on the Pettis Bridge where you got washed off with dogs and hoses. That will be your moment, and now the whole world will see it. What they gonna do now? So do we want to win, or are we just here to fight?
Two very quick things. Two quick things. One, that's strategic, and that's something that touches hearts. And two, it goes back to understanding how history, how we got where we were. We got it from understanding the end game and being willing to do things that we are uncomfortable with. Most people nowadays, they're not willing to do what they're not comfortable with. Right. They're not willing to acknowledge, they're not willing to look what may seem weak, because in that moment of weakness, that's your strength. Right. That's where you change, that's where your fulcrum goes one way or the other. And you're not operating also from a point of anger per se. You're operating on the most basic human level, which is love. Most basic whatever level, which is love. And that person, just like you said, can respond negatively or positively. But you put everything you said is correctly, exactly on point. I just don't know sometimes, I hope, that people are willing to do that. Oh. Because that's why, frankly, I don't...
Didn't do it. Not willing. Didn't do it.
Didn't do it, but you know what? But it goes to what you said. If you're not willing to do what's necessary to change the paradigm, then guess what, brother and sister, white man or black man, you are part of the problem.
You'll be here 40 years from now.
Exactly.
Telling a 25-year-old who's, by the way, blaming you because nothing changed, blaming you because when you had an opportunity to change it, you didn't. And saying, well, y'all didn't fix it? Because I got kids right now. Y'all didn't fix it? You're right, we didn't fix it. We didn't fix it then, we ain't fixing it now. And y'all ain't going to try to fix it doing what you're doing. But at some point in time, the young people have to recognize that the old people have lived through some things, and hopefully the old people can tell you that we made some mistakes, and don't do that. Don't do my mistake. Not the fact that I'm perfect, but I'm trying to teach people I don't lose, I just learn and keep going on. But I hope that I've learned enough to understand I got to give that back to somebody else so they don't get to the point, that fork in the road, and make the exact same mistake. Because we never get to the proper outcome.
At least they can learn from what happened with you.
Yeah, don't go down that dark alley, young man. The last people went down there, they didn't come back. That's what if I know that's the alley that people go down and come back, and I tell you, you go down anyway, that was on you, son.
If you're not willing to do what's different, if you're not willing to operate in a strategic standpoint, moreover from the standpoint of loving yourself but loving your brother, then you will not properly address racism, you will not properly address prejudice, and you may actually become a vehicle of the thing that you say you got a problem with.
I think we contribute to do it all the time.
Yeah, no, but we do it all the time. It's like, dude, let's flip the script.
Yeah.
You know, okay, another musical public, bring the noise, but the noise isn't from yelling. The noise is from doing what you said, understanding you have to change the paradigm, understanding that you're not gonna win the chess game in the first 2 moves with your pawn. You have to be playing the whole game, and you may have to use a move that you don't like, but is going to work.
Sacrifice that queen every once in a while.
Exactly.
Yep. Sack up.
Yeah.
Quite valuable. Sometimes you got to throw them out there. I don't know if you guys have seen Starlight 13, but sometimes you just throw them out there. Throw them out there and let them get chewed up by it so you can go out the back door. Throw them out the front so you can go out the back.
Well, work something else.
And you know what else people say? Just like Sergeant Cho said, I see nothing.
And that's what it
They
takes.
see nothing.
But I mean, that's who we are, though. We really need to think differently. Not differently. I think we need to think more, not differently. I think we need to think more, deeper, and stop shallow analysis of our issues and our problems, and actually get down to say, where are we in the process? I said, if we control the means of production of the media, created the content, and then the distribution of that content, where we could make very positive messages about who we are, who our children are, who we are as a society, and change. Because when you look at what's being fed to us, it's very negative. It's very negative as far as people of color, as far as women, as far as anybody who's not part of the power structure. It's very negative. And when you realize that's why we have the bigotry and the prejudice we have, it's part of what we're being fed. So we have to change our diet. And our diet has to be a lot healthier than it is right now.
Our intellectual diet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's even deeper than that. That's on the level of your spirit, your mind, body, and spirit. If you need to touch at 2 points, your mind and your spirit, you touch at those 2 points, you can change the whole course of humanity. And it's very simple. We've done it before. We just kind of you forget exactly what you forget.
Then they burned down the Library of Alexandria, and we went into the Dark Ages. So
well, I don't care if they burned down the Library of Alexandria. I don't care if they take care of the place in Timbuktu. If you don't disseminate the knowledge, if your heart's not open to change, then nothing will change. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to be light skinned. You don't have to be aquamarine or whatever. You just have to be willing to say, hey, what did you say? Aquamarine, I brought that in. Aquamarine. Brazil. Anyway, you just have to be willing to do something. Change, be willing to be the change you want to see. It sounds quaint, but at the end of the day, it's real.
Okay, cool. You want to lock it up?
Yep.
Okay, all right.